Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where we all know that Command & Conquer Red Alert is a great game. So I want to skip over it and instead check out the expansions, Counterstrike and the Aftermath. Red Alert was one of the earliest PC games that I bought, so you can imagine I was really excited when the expansion Counterstrike was announced. The box proudly boasted 16 new missions on the front, and if we check round the back, well, we have over 100 new multiplayer maps, new units, more music, desktop themes and much more. And if we look inside the box, we find the expansion on a single CD, with a booklet that gives us some basic installation information, and a CNC Universe catalogue, which at this point was really just 4 titles. There was also a Westward postcard, some registration details, and this page with some Morse code on it. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Now, after installing the expansion, which supports both the DOS and Windows release, we start the game up normally. And after we get that epic boot sequence, we find ourselves in the main menu, which if we look at the top of the menu we find new missions. And this is where we'll find most of the new content in the game, as it brings up this brand new menu that allows us to select one of the new missions, with the Allied missions being more story driven and being in multiple parts, and the Soviets more being about crazy situations. So starting with the first Allied mission, we get this wall of text that outlines what we need to do. There are no new video sequences, it's just text and then right into the game. And with the Allies missions being story driven, you can expect to have to grow your units as you go, as you start off with just a small amount in this first sarin gas mission. Light tanks and rangers will be the bulk of your forces here. You'll have to use those to intercept the trucks that are carrying the gas, all while taking down that Soviet base, which has Tesla coils, V2s and a whole range of units trying to defend it, including their new Soviet weapon, the Tesla tank, which looks just like a mobile jamming unit and will even knock out your radar if it gets too close, but it can also give off Tesla blasts. And this unit is pretty common of what you'll find in the expansion, reusing old designs to make new ones. It was something that modders had been doing for quite a while, and you can even do it yourself if you want to edit the rules.ini file. The missions might be a bit straightforward to start with, but there are some fun bits that do come up. In another mission you have to take out these convoys again, but you have to be very careful, as when a truck blows up it leaves you a present, a nuclear device, and try to collect it and boom! It will go off, taking out everything around it. You can actually use this to your advantage to clear out those convoys quite quickly, if you don't mind losing a few of your own units, that is.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
And it also seems a familiar face from the original game shows up,
Them a second
Stavros.
Prove them wrong.
You remember him, right?
Stavros.
Yeah, that's the guy. Well, he's here in one of the new missions. Again, there's no new cutscenes, but you do get to guide him around, as you have to help him observe the damage that was done to Greece after the Soviets attacked during the events of Red Alert. So it's cool that these missions actually have callbacks to the events of the game, and slot into the overall story. And having any mission with Tanya being a badass is always fun. Now, the Allied forces themselves don't really get any new or fancy units. The Soviet missions, on the other hand, are full of new units, including the very first one, Proving Grounds, which starts off pretty normal enough. You have to use a few mammoth tanks to push your way through the map.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
So you finally arrive at the construction yard, which also happens to have a subpen, with a new unit, the ATS, which stands for Advanced Tactical Submarine. And what it basically means is those torpedoes have been upgraded with nuclear warheads. And given how stupid the sub-AI is, they will most likely take themselves out along with everything else. It is crazy and a lot of fun to do.
Unit ready.
We all remember how fun Tanya was to use, while the Soviets decided it was time to get their own commando. The cyborg Volkov, who also brings along his friend, Chiskovsky, the dog.
At once.
Both of which were cybernetically enhanced and are basically walking armies. Infantry are no match for them, with the dog being able to jump huge distances to take out anyone nearby, even going up cliff faces. And Volkov can shoot at absolutely everything and do huge damage with a gun that makes Robocop's weapon look small and useless, as tanks will melt after a few seconds.
Very well. Affirmative.
Even cruisers fare badly against him. That's right, cruisers that can level a base in a few minutes get absolutely destroyed by this guy.
Yes, sir. Very well.
So it's no surprise that even Tanya comes off poorly in a one-to-one match. If you happen to play these in the CNC Remastered edition, then you might be surprised to find that some of these missions have cutscenes. The reason for this was due to Red Alert Retaliation, a port of the two expansions to the PlayStation, which were merged together into a single game and had new cutscenes filmed to fill it all out. Now this includes what I believe is the first appearance of Cavill,
Oh, by the way, I'm General Carville.
someone who would play a much bigger part in Red Alert 2. And so it actually acts as a bit of a bridge between the two games.
Soviet atomic processing facilities are hidden. Stavros insists on going to...
Now these videos were updated and then inserted into the Remastered edition, which really helps bring some of those missions to life. So if you've not checked out the Remastered edition, or not tried out the extra missions, then you really should do. Amazingly, for how wacky the Soviet missions got, that was nothing compared to what they had hidden. And to unlock it, you needed to solve that Morse code sheet that you found in the box. And if you do that, it will tell you that you have to hold down the shift key and then left click on the speaker on the main menu. And that's right, not only do we get a cutscene, but we also get a secret set of missions that will pit you against ants. And these things are huge and very tough. The first mission will pit you against them and you have to defend yourself for a set amount of time, which is quite hard when they'll just keep on coming. And at first it's just these large ants that have to physically attack you to do any damage, but they can do a lot of damage if you do let them get close to you. These missions will really give you something to think about, as they are quite difficult and varied with their objectives, but they are also quite a lot of fun. Overall, the expansion pack is pretty okay, but the repurposing of units to create new ones felt a little lazy at the time. And yes, you got more multiplayer and skirmish maps to play on, but really we wanted new units as well. Which is where the Aftermath comes in. And if we check out this bright green box, we find out we have 7 new units, which can be used in both single and multiplayer. There are 80 new missions, as well as new multiplayer maps that get much larger than anything we've seen before, as well as more music. And more Frank Klepacki music is always welcome. And inside the box we get a small manual, which goes over the new units, and the expansion on a single CD. The menu itself is the same, with the new missions showing up at the top of the list, and once again there are no new cutscenes. But it does feel that this time they decided to mix it up with both sides, as there really isn't many multi-mission arcs. And it feels like these missions are a little bit more creative, and they try to give you lots of chances to mess around with the new units, that we'll also see in the multiplayer game. Like Shock Therapy, which give you the new Shock Troopers to play with, and a mission that's very reminiscent of those earlier Soviet missions, as you have to wipe out a town, though it is far more complex than any of those ones, as there are multiple bases that will also need to be wiped out as well. while the Allied missions allow you to mess around with the new Chrono Tank that can teleport itself around the map,
Yes, sir.
and will require you to take out multiple buildings using this new unit.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
The old units also gets a look in, with Tanya continuing to be quite popular and showing up in a number of missions.
Affirmative.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Acknowledge.
And because of that, we also get to see the return of Volkov, who has one of the few missions that is set inside of a building, where you'll have to steal a new unit from the Allies, which is quite cool as most of the time these missions tended to be the Allies having to attack a Soviet base. Now this will require you to do all the typical actions that you have in these missions, triggering computers to blow up buildings or even turning the lights off, which will actually regrow the fog of war. The end goal is to enter a building that will give you the new unit, even though on this level its abilities don't really come into play. Where there's a second one where you'd really think it would get a chance to shine, but really it just fades into the background, and that's because it can cloak. And with it being a transport, you can actually put Volkov in and out of the unit, so it does quickly become a deadly machine, as you can just roll it into an enemy base, get Volkov to come out and then just wipe everything out from behind. So you can really see why this wasn't included as a regular new unit in the multiplayer games, as it does feel a little bit overpowered.
Reinforcements have arrived. First objective.
The missions also ramp up with new ideas, with Don't Drink the Water, in which you'll have to get this truck to a specific point. Do that, and it will actually poison the water and take down this base that's downstream. This allows you to then enter it and take it over with ease. It's an inventive idea, and it's a bit of a shame they weren't all this creative, as the Allies end up getting a bunch of missions that feel a bit like the standard build a base, build a force, and then attack. Though I guess the real meat of this was the new units that you could use in multiplayer, and I have to say once we got this expansion it was the main way we used to play competitive Red Alert. And you can even use these new units in a skirmish mission as well. The Soviets ended up getting the Shock Trooper, which we've already seen, and it's interesting to note they got new artwork as well as brand new voiced lines, so it doesn't feel recycled at all. The same can also be said of the new Tesla tank, which gets its own sprite. It's actually quite nippy for a tank, though it might as well be built out of wood for how long it lasts in a real firefight. The Sub Pen also gets another unit, the Missile Sub, which removed the torpedoes to instead get missile launchers, and these things can do a lot of damage. If it's close enough, these things will take down most units and buildings very quickly. They also got the MAD tank, which stands for the Mutually Assured Destruction Tank, and it doesn't have a standard weapon, instead it has to be triggered. And if you wait a few seconds it will charge up and then send out a shockwave that will damage all buildings and vehicles nearby. But amazingly it will actually leave the troops alone. It's a bit of a novelty unit and not all that useful in the game, as if you destroy it before it finishes charging up then it's completely useless. The Allied forces were not quite as blessed with new units, which is surprising as they really could have done with a few new units to help balance them out. We get the previously mentioned Chrono Tank, which thankfully doesn't teleport back after being used, but trying to move a whole army of them is quite a pain, as you can only move them one at a time. And these things can very quickly be overwhelmed by enemy units. Which is I guess where the field mechanic comes into play. Like the medic, this is an infantry unit that can heal vehicles from the field. Now they can be useful in a fight as they repair units quite quickly, but mostly useful in small packs of tanks or games with smaller number of units, as large forces just tend to wipe through anything that comes along. Now there is one more unit that amazingly both sides got, the demo truck. This is a truck with a nuclear bomb inside. Try to take it out and it blows up. Let it get into your base and it blows up. It's best to take them out at a distance. And with its low armour, it's not too hard to do so. So again, it's a bit of a novelty unit, as you can't even chrono shift it around. You can just hope to try and sneak it into an enemy base. Now overall, I do prefer this expansion to the first. The new units give some new ways to fight, but it does feel it makes the Soviet forces a little bit more unbalanced than it was before. But these were not the best expansion packs you could buy. Westwood would definitely get better with their later games, where they would add a proper story campaign, so it would feel more like a continuation of the game rather than just a few fun missions. The last things I want to note about the expansion CDs is that they also contained a few extras, like having themes for Windows 95 and 98. Now I've shown these off before, but they include icons, sounds and backgrounds that I continue to use to this day. They also have some music tracks that you can play on a regular CD player, which I used to play all the time as well. But just remember, don't play track 1.
Their weakness is power. Black out the base and nothing will stop you. Good luck.
If you want to check these out, then I'd suggest you get the CNC Remastered edition, as it includes the missions as well as all the new cutscenes. It also gives you the option of enabling the units in skirmish as well as multiplayer games, and is a little bit easier to get than trying to track down these old CDs. And I will admit I was a little bit disappointed at the time when Counterstrike was released. While the new missions were interesting and had some fun units, they were limited to just those missions, and I was annoyed I couldn't use them in games against my mates. So the Aftermath expansion gave us exactly what we were hoping for. It added some interesting units and it became our go-to version of the game. And if you'll excuse me, I've got some ants to defeat. So until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was Battle Station's Red Alert, and this was Goldfish on Games.
Affirmative.
Thank you for watching my video, I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can use those buttons just below, you know the ones I mean. Or if you're not sure yet, then you can check out 2 other videos that I've done that are on the screen right now. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.